Welcome back. Now, this is the first sign of remonetization that we're seeing in our banks. Cash withdrawals and deposits have been capped by the bank. That is cash transaction, not the ATM, but the cash transactions have been capped by leading private banks. Now, this is what it means. If you look at the Axis Bank, they have monthly 5 cash transactions free, 10 lakh cap for deposit and withdrawal if you go to banks, beyond which you would have to shell out 150 rupees or 5 rupees per 1,000 rupee transaction that you do. And let's not confuse this with the ATM withdrawal, because this is when you go to your bank, you either deposit or withdraw cash. After Axis Bank, even HDFC Bank has come out with their own transaction limit. ICICI Bank also saying first for transaction completely free at our branch, but after that you would have to pay 5 rupees for every 1,000 cash transaction, deposit and withdrawal, though no maximum limit has been set. So if you visit your banks at least more than 4 times to deposit or withdraw money from the ICICI Bank, you'll have to shell out more. HDFC Bank, March 1st is when they have come out with a hike in transaction fee. 4 cash transactions are allowed for the moment, 150 to be charged for the every 5th transaction and 5 rupee for every 1,000 rupee that you deposit or withdraw. There have been limits which have been put on the bands of deposit and withdrawal of cash. Let me go across to my colleague Virendra, who's been tracking this story very closely. So Virendra, the idea of this is to minimize cash transactions at the banks, to minimize the lines that we've seen at the banks by implementing 150, which is a minimal charge of 5 rupee every 1,000 rupee if you cross that limit. But a lot of confusion on the ground where people are saying that it is for the ATM withdrawal as well.
Exactly, Devina. These transaction cost would be for the ATM transaction, because since last 24 hours we have been in touch with all the banks, and all the banks have different instruction for their customers. HDFC has different. Axis Bank, let's say Axis Bank, they are giving 10 free transaction for their consumers in semi-urban areas, semi-towns and the villages. So that is a different, because ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank are not giving that service even in the villages and all, but Axis Bank is giving. So definitely, in a very simple word, all the consumers of the private banks have to pay extra transaction cost after 4 or 5 free transaction in the ATM. So definitely they need to prepare for that, for paying ₹2 rupees 50 paisa or maybe max 5 rupees per 1,000 rupees.
Yes,
that is
absolutely.
for the ATMs.
Absolutely.
But also important aspect here is that
There's
also lump sum amount of rupees 150, and that is for maybe for the deposit of the big amount in the bank.
All right. So important clarification there, not for the ATM withdrawal, only if you withdraw or deposit large amount of cash in your bank, and the limits have been set by Axis Bank, ICICI and HDFC Bank differently. So you might want to check out the notification before you visit your neighborhood bank. Now, moving on to the other story we've been tracking this morning is from Tamil Nadu, and this story is about how hydrocarbon extraction, which essentially is a technique to ensure that oil is oozed out of the ground, has incurred the wrath of Tamil Nadu villagers. There are about 76 villagers who've come together, and this is in a place called Neduvessel, which is about 400 kilometers in south of Chennai. My colleague Pramod joining us with this story as well. Now, Pramod, we were earlier looking at Raghav Lawrence, who's an activist who led the Jallikat protest, also coming down and meeting the protesters. Yesterday, EPS has said no such project would be allowed, but the centre has not rolled back this project yet. What is the latest development in the story?
Well, Devina, as you mentioned already, some close to people from 76 villages have assembled at Neduvessel, and they want to protest against this particular hydrocarbon extraction. Right now, I'm at a place called Vallurkottam, and as you can see, there is like a lot of police presence over here to see that no protesters come across in Chennai against this process right now. But what happened is that Raghava Lawrence, the same person who headed the Jallikat protest, decided to go for another protest here, more like a hunger strike. But apparently, due to the president's visit, this has been called for in the last moment. We have the protesters over here, the same people who also headed the Jallikat movement. Let's just ask, இப்போ இந்த ஹைட்ரோகார்பன் பிரச்சனை என்ன எவ்வளவு பெரியதா இருக்கு? இருக்கு. எதுக்காக அதை எதிர்த்து இவ்வளோ போராடுறீங்க?
ஹைட்ரோ கார்பன் திட்டம்ன்றது நெடுவாசலில் குறிப்பாக புதுக்கோட்டை மாவட்டங்களில் பூமிக்கு அடியில் இருக்கக்கூடிய அது ஒரு கேஸை வந்து வெளியில் எடுக்கணும்னு சொல்லி ஆழ்துளை கிணறு போடுறாங்க. ஆழ்துளை போர் போடுறதுனால எங்களுடைய ஏற்கனவே விவசாயம் நீர் இல்லாதனால ரொம்ப கஷ்டப்பட்டுட்டு இருக்கோம். அதில் இந்த விவசாயத்துக்கு பூமியில் இந்த கேஸ் வெளியில் எடுத்தாங்கன்னா சுத்தமாக எங்களுடைய விவசாய நிலங்கள் பாலைவனமாக மாறும் நிலைமை வந்துடும்.
Devina, they say that they're very much afraid that this hydrocarbon extraction process can change, that completely turn this fertile cultivation land at Neduvasal into a desert, and that is the only reason now students also come across to protest here. நான் உங்களை ஜல்லிக்கட்டு ப்ரொட்டஸ்ட்லையும் பார்த்தேன். இப்போ இங்கேயும் வந்திருக்கீங்க. மாணவர்கள் இதில் எவ்வளோ போராடுறதுக்கு காரணம் கவர்மெண்ட் வந்து அந்த ஒரு பிரச்சனை இல்லைன்னு சொல்கிறாங்க. கவர்மெண்ட் மேலே உங்களுக்கு நம்பிக்கை இல்லையா?
நம்பிக்கை இல்லைன்னு இல்லை, நம்பிக்கை அவங்க உருவாக்கலன்னு தான் சொல்லணும். அதுக்கு நம்ம எதுவும் சொல்ல முடியாது. இப்போ என்னென்னா எங்களோட பதிவு இது என்ன விஷயம்னா நாங்கள் எல்லாத்துக்கும் நம்பி கொஞ்சம் ஏமாத்துட்டோன்றது தான் உண்மை.
Well, he tries to explain that it is not that they don't accept the word of the government that the land will not be destroyed, but it seems like already Tamil Nadu has gone through so many calamities in the past that the government has to give a proper assurance. Until that, they will go against this extraction of hydrocarbon at Neduvasal, Devina.